Jump into a story that's all made up, filled with fun surprises and wild adventures that come straight from the imagination. This tale is completely fictional, taking you on a journey where anything can happen. Get ready to explore and enjoy a world where the only limit is how big we can dream. Amelia Hartford was born into a world of luxury and high expectations. As the sole heir of a real estate tycoon, her early years were a meticulously orchestrated sequence of elite schooling, horseback riding lessons, and high society events. From a tender age, she was schooled in the art of preserving a spotless public persona, a skill that would profoundly influence her life. Despite the veneer of a fairy tale life, Amelia's domestic environment was anything but perfect. Her father, Charles's authoritative demeanor alongside her mother, Margaret's incessant scrutiny, stifled any real emotional bonding. Amelia sought refuge in her scholarly interests, excelling academically and cultivating a deep appreciation for art history. Her ambition and intellect secured her a spot in a prestigious Ivy League school, where she thrived in her studies but found social interactions challenging. The burden of upholding her family's esteemed name while trying to establish her identity led to unstable relationships and a deepening sense of alienation from her authentic self. Beneath her impeccable facade, Amelia battled profound insecurities and a pervasive need for approval. Her romantic involvements were usually passionate yet ephemeral, as she tended to choose partners who offered the thrill and attention she desired over the stability she purportedly sought. During this period, Amelia encountered Ethan Marshall, whose serene confidence and authenticity appealed to her. In him, she envisioned the possibility of the stable life she had been conditioned to desire. As their bond deepened, Amelia persuaded herself that Ethan could quell her inner conflicts, unlocking the person she was destined to become. However, ingrained habits persist stubbornly. As their wedding neared, Amelia wrestled with doubts and escalating restlessness. The persona she had diligently crafted was fracturing, exposing the intricate and conflicted woman underneath. Ethan Marshall's background was a stark contrast to Amelia's affluent upbringing. The son of a local physician and a high school literature teacher, Ethan was raised in a tightly knit community where virtues such as diligence, integrity, and loyalty were valued far more than wealth. From his youth, Ethan showed a keen aptitude for science and an insatiable curiosity about the world. His parents encouraged his explorative spirit, fostering a mindset of inquiry and understanding. Summer breaks were characterized by camping excursions and trips to science museums, nurturing Ethan's burgeoning interest in environmental conservation. Despite his scholarly achievements, Ethan remained humble and well-regarded among his peers. He was the type who would help struggling classmates or volunteer at the local wildlife rescue. His genuine kindness and integrity, quietly demonstrated, became defining traits of his character. Ethan's commitment to his studies won him a scholarship to a renowned university, where he majored in environmental science. It was here that he first crossed paths with his cousin, Lucas Marshall. Lucas, hailing from the wealthier branch of the family, contrasted with Ethan in background, but not in spirit. The cousins developed a tight-knit relationship, with Ethan often acting as the voice of reason to Lucas's spontaneous tendencies. Following graduation, Ethan's drive for environmental protection led him to a career with a nonprofit dedicated to safeguarding endangered species. His role brought him to distant parts of the globe, exposing him to the splendor of untouched nature and the harsh realities of environmental degradation. These encounters further fueled his commitment to making a difference. At a charity event for his organization, Ethan first laid eyes on Amelia Hartford. Her elegance and intellect were apparent, but it was her concealed fragility that truly drew him in. Ethan saw in Amelia a soul yearning for the kind of steadfast love and support he was eager to offer. As their romance flourished, Ethan felt he had found his ideal match, someone who resonated with his principles and could intellectually stimulate him. He imagined a future rich with mutual adventures and aligned ambitions. When he proposed, it felt like a natural progression, and he devoted himself to planning a life with Amelia. However, Ethan was unaware that the foundation of trust he so cherished was soon to be challenged, testing his values and his identity at their core. Lucas Marshall, the family's proverbial black sheep, a role he embraced rather than shunned, grew up amid affluence, but lacked the emotional support he desperately needed. His father, a formidable corporate attorney, was often absent, while his mother found refuge in social gatherings and pills. Left to navigate life largely on his own, Lucas developed a defiant streak early, utilizing his charm and striking looks to sway others and skirt increasingly perilous behaviors. Despite his unstable home environment, Lucas was naturally bright and charismatic, attracting people effortlessly. He could excel academically when he chose to, but was more frequently the ringleader of youthful escapades. It was during one such escapade that he truly connected with his cousin Ethan, who had come to stay over a summer break. Ethan's steady influence and genuine care for Lucas made a profound impact, providing Lucas a sense of being appreciated for who he was beyond his family name or his entertaining persona. This bond with Ethan became a cornerstone in Lucas's otherwise tumultuous life, offering stability amidst chaos. As they matured, Lucas's life took a very different route from Ethan's dedicated pursuit of environmental science. Lucas flitted between academic disciplines, never quite landing on a vocation that felt right. He eventually took a position at a tech startup, drawn more by the lifestyle it promised than a genuine interest in the field. His personal life mirrored this pattern of instability, with a series of short-lived relationships leaving him skeptical about true love, yet continually searching for affirmation through romantic conquests. His reputation as a captivating yet elusive figure grew, marked by a string of disillusioned partners. When Ethan introduced Lucas to Amelia, a shift occurred in Lucas's perspective. Here was a woman whose intellect and complexity seemed to echo his own, who also understood the weight of familial expectations. What began as light-hearted banter soon morphed into a perilous fascination, one that Lucas knew was forbidden, yet couldn't seem to evade. As Ethan and Amelia's wedding neared, Lucas found himself at a crossroads, torn between his loyalty to Ethan and his intensifying feelings for Amelia. This internal strife fueled increasingly reckless actions and a desperation that would ultimately play a role in the heartbreaking events that were to unfold. The engagement of Ethan Marshall and Amelia Hartford became a highlight of the social calendar. Ethan had proposed on a moonlit shore during a conservation expedition in Costa Rica, offering Amelia an ethically sourced diamond ring that symbolized both his love and his ethical commitments. Caught up in the romantic setting and the prospect of a secure future, Amelia accepted his proposal without a moment's doubt. News of their engagement quickly circulated among their friends and family. The Hartfords were elated that Amelia had chosen an appropriate partner, though they viewed Ethan's commitment to nonprofit work as slightly old-fashioned. The Marshalls embraced Amelia wholeheartedly, captivated by her elegance and her apparent dedication to Ethan. As the couple began their wedding preparations, the initial tensions in their relationship started to surface. Influenced by her mother and long-standing social norms, Amelia advocated for a grand celebration that would be the highlight of the social calendar. Ethan, adhering to his humble roots and environmental ethics, pushed for a more subdued, intimate event. Their compromises often felt lopsided, with Ethan begrudgingly accepting a longer guest list and a more lavish venue than he preferred. He rationalized these concessions as expressions of love, wishing for Amelia to experience her dream wedding. Conversely, Amelia harbored increasing resentment, misinterpreting Ethan's hesitations as a lack of excitement about their marriage. As the wedding date approached, the stress of event planning began to strain their relationship. Amelia's patience wore thin, often snapping at Ethan over minor issues such as the color of tablecloths or wine choices. Ethan, seeking harmony, withdrew into his work, spending extended hours at the office and leaving most decisions to Amelia. During this challenging period, Lucas became more involved in their lives, often lightening the mood with his humor or offering a shoulder to lean on. He grew close to both Ethan and Amelia, providing support that Ethan gratefully accepted, oblivious to the subtle exchanges of longing looks and lingering touches between Lucas and Amelia. Amelia found herself eagerly anticipating Lucas's visits, drawn to the spontaneity and thrill he injected into her increasingly structured life. She rationalized her growing attraction to Lucas as mere cold feet, a typical reaction to the stresses of wedding planning. As the wedding day neared, the tension between Ethan and Amelia escalated dramatically. A fierce dispute over the seating chart left Amelia in tears and Ethan storming out of their apartment. It was Lucas who arrived to console Amelia, armed with a bottle of fine champagne and a listening ear. That evening, as Amelia voiced her uncertainties and fears, their relationship subtly transformed. The line between solace and longing blurred, culminating in a kiss that would ignite a disastrous sequence of events. The next morning, laden with guilt yet unable to quell her passion, Amelia made a decision that would irrevocably change their lives. Convincing herself that what Ethan didn't discover wouldn't harm him, she decided to indulge in one last thrill before committing to marital life. Little did she know, her meticulously crafted world was about to unravel spectacularly. The affair between Amelia Hartford and Lucas Marshall sparked rapidly, engulfing all caution and reasoning. Initially manifested as covert glances and subtle touches, it soon escalated into secret meetings and intense liaisons. Their first secretive meeting was ostensibly about wedding planning. Amelia had suggested selecting a surprise gift for Ethan, though her motives were far from innocent. They met at a discreet, upscale hotel bar, a place where privacy was paramount and inquiries were scarce. Seated closely, browsing through a catalog of luxury watches, the air between them crackled with tension. A casual touch from Lucas erased any remaining pretense. Silently, they proceeded to a room Lucas had preemptively booked. The guilt would surface later. As she lay next to an unsuspecting Ethan, Amelia convinced herself it was just a one-time slip, a moment of weakness that would not be repeated. However, the allure of the forbidden was too potent to resist. Lucas and Amelia crafted a complex system of coded messages and fake alibis to continue their liaisons. A message about flower arrangements indicated a hotel rendezvous, while a discussion about suit fittings was code for meeting at Lucas's apartment. They became adept at seizing moments for fleeting trysts in Amelia's office and passionate encounters in Lucas's car, parked in secluded spots. The danger of getting caught only intensified their excitement. There were several close calls that left them shaken with a mix of fear and exhilaration. Once, Ethan almost caught them during a family dinner where they had sneaked off to a coat closet for a quick, passionate encounter. Another time, a friend spotted them holding hands in a cafe far from town, prompting them to concoct a detailed lie about planning a surprise party for Ethan. As their wedding day rapidly approached, the intensity of Amelia and Lucas's affair only deepened. Amelia found herself constantly comparing Ethan to Lucas, invariably seeing Ethan as lacking. Lucas was adventurous and unpredictable, while Ethan seemed predictable and safe. These comparisons led Amelia to question her entire relationship and the life she was planning. Lucas, for his part, was falling deeper into the relationship than he had ever intended. What started as just another fling had blossomed into something serious, and he began to dream of a future where he and Amelia could be together openly. The cost of this dream to Ethan's happiness was a detail Lucas conveniently ignored. During their moments alone, both Amelia and Lucas were haunted by guilt. They understood the devastation their actions would cause, if uncovered, the lives they would ruin. Yet, each time they met, their remorse was overwhelmed by their intense passion. As the days went by, their grip on reality started to weaken. They made promises to each other that were impossible to keep, and spoke of a doomed love. All the while, the date of Amelia and Ethan's wedding loomed ever closer, like a ticking time bomb that neither knew how to defuse. Ethan had always prided himself on his sharp intuition, his ability to read people and situations. This skill had served him well in his conservation efforts, navigating complex negotiations and delicate ecosystems. Yet, he was completely blind to the betrayal unfolding right under his nose. The initial signs were subtle and easy to dismiss. Amelia's new obsession with her phone, her abrupt end to calls when Ethan entered the room, her increased irritability, which she blamed on wedding stress, and the unfamiliar cologne on her clothes, which she claimed was from a new coworker at the gallery. However, it was Lucas's changed behavior that finally sparked Ethan's suspicions. Lucas, usually so involved in their lives, started making excuses to miss family events. When he did appear, he was visibly uneasy, a guilty expression flickering across his face whenever he looked at Amelia. Ethan tried to dismiss his growing doubts, telling himself he was just being paranoid, but the uneasy feeling only grew stronger each day. Ethan began to observe more closely, noticing how Amelia and Lucas seemed to communicate silently, their shared laughter at jokes that excluded him. Unable to confront his fears head-on, Ethan embarked on a rudimentary investigation. He found himself doing things he never imagined, like checking Amelia's phone while she showered and scrutinizing credit card statements for unfamiliar charges. He even drove past Lucas's apartment at odd hours to see if Amelia's car was there. Each discovery was a stab to his heart, a receipt for 2 glasses of champagne at a hotel bar on a night Amelia claimed she was working late, a hastily deleted text from Lucas saying, "Missing you," a lipstick mark on Lucas's collar that matched Amelia's favorite shade. As their wedding day approached, Ethan found himself caught in a whirlwind of doubt and denial. He desperately wanted to believe in Amelia's love and the future they had planned together, but the mounting evidence was hard to overlook, and the burden of his doubts grew unbearable. Ethan's internal conflict began to affect his demeanor. He grew distant and preoccupied, often losing focus during conversations. His work, once a source of passion, now seemed trivial compared to his personal distress. Friends and family attributed his change in behavior to pre-wedding nerves, unaware of the deep turmoil brewing within. 2 weeks before the wedding, Ethan's suspicions reached a critical point. He decided to confront Amelia, seeking an innocent explanation for the disturbing patterns he had observed. In their shared apartment, amid final wedding preparations, Ethan initiated a serious discussion. He directly questioned her about her relationship with Lucas, his voice thick with emotional strain. Amelia maintained her composure, feigning innocence and dismissing Ethan's concerns as baseless. However, Ethan noticed signs of her unease as he laid out his findings: secretive phone calls, unexplained absences, furtive glances. Despite Amelia's denials, Ethan pressed on, citing specific incidents that fueled his suspicion. Amelia's replies grew more intricate and defensive, insisting Ethan was merely stressed about the wedding. She reaffirmed her love for him, questioning why she would ever risk their relationship. As the confrontation escalated, Amelia suggested calling Lucas to verify her claims. Ethan watched her nervously as she dialed and put the phone on speaker. Lucas's voice filled the room, smoothly corroborating Amelia's stories and providing alibis for each suspicious incident Ethan had raised. The united front shown by Amelia and Lucas left Ethan feeling drained and disheartened. Their seamless coordination in countering his accusations only intensified his fears and doubts. By the end of the conversation, Amelia tried to reconcile, suggesting Ethan's worries were just pre-wedding jitters. She encouraged him to focus on their imminent wedding. Ethan, unable to express his turmoil, simply nodded. Looking into Amelia's eyes, Ethan realized everything had changed. The trust that was once the bedrock of their relationship was now irreparably broken, and with it, the future he had envisioned began to dissolve. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear, an ostensibly perfect day for a celebration of love. However, within the opulent bridal suite of the Rosewood Hills estate, the mood was far from celebratory. Amelia sat at the elaborate vanity, surrounded by her bridesmaids who attended to her hair and makeup. Despite the skilled application of makeup, her reflection showed her looking pale and strained. The burden of her deceit weighed heavily on her, constricting her breath in her ornate gown. Across the estate, in a room set aside for the groom and his party, Ethan stood still as his best man adjusted his bow tie. His expression was one of composed detachment, hiding the storm of emotions within. The decision he had reached in the early morning felt both frightening and unavoidable. Lucas arrived late, entering the room with a forced smile that failed to mask his unease. Ethan observed his cousin in the mirror, noting the anxiousness emanating from him. Their eyes met briefly, and Lucas quickly averted his gaze, unable to meet Ethan's steady look. As the ceremony time approached and the tension escalated, Amelia struggled to hold back tears, smudging her meticulously done mascara. Ethan's hands trembled as he fastened his grandmother's watch, a family heirloom he had once hoped to pass on to a son he might have had with Amelia. Outside, the guests, oblivious to the unfolding drama, filled the venue with lively chatter and laughter. The string quartet began to play, their gentle melodies in stark contrast to the emotional tumult hidden away. As the wedding planner's voice echoed through the door, announcing it was time to take their places, 3 hearts pounded with a mix of dread and anticipation. The moment of truth had come. The grand ballroom of Rosewood Hills was transformed into a floral paradise, with garlands of white roses and delicate baby's breath draping every surface, their fragrance permeating the air. Sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows, bathing the assembled guests in a warm glow. As the music crescendoed, all eyes shifted to the back of the room. Ethan stood at the altar, his expression inscrutable, watching the bridal party proceed down the aisle. Lucas, standing beside him as the best man, seemed visibly uneasy, his gaze flitting between Ethan and the entrance. Then the bridal march started, and Amelia appeared at the doorway. A collective gasp swept through the crowd. She was radiant in white, her gown a flowing creation of lace and silk, seemingly hovering around her as she moved. Those nearest could see the tension in her smile, the subtle tremor in her hands as she held her bouquet. As Amelia walked down the aisle on her father's arm, her eyes met Ethan's. In that instant, a silent exchange occurred between them. Ethan discerned the fear and guilt in Amelia's eyes, while she saw a chilling resolve in his that sent a shiver through her. The ceremony began, the officiant's words drifting over the couple, barely registering. Amelia's replies were mechanical, her voice a mere whisper. Ethan's responses were clear and firm, yet devoid of the warmth and affection expected on such an occasion. As they came to the exchange of vows, the room tensed palpably. Guests shifted in their seats, sensing the uneasy atmosphere radiating from the couple. Lucas stood stiffly, his complexion unusually pale, as if bracing for a catastrophe. "Ethan," the officiant prompted, "you may now recite your vows to Amelia." Ethan inhaled deeply, his gaze sweeping the crowd before returning to Amelia. When he spoke, his voice resonated through the quiet room. "Amelia, Amelia, Amelia, today I stand before you not to declare vows of love and fidelity, but to reveal a truth that can no longer be concealed." His declaration sent a wave of confusion across the guests. Amelia's eyes widened in terror, realizing the magnitude of what was about to unfold. For weeks, I've harbored suspicions that the woman I once believed I knew, the woman I intended to build a life with, has been deceiving me. Ethan's voice gained strength, driven by the pain and anger he had suppressed. "This isn't just any deception, but one that strikes at the very core of trust and family," he declared. The room filled with gasps and murmurs as Ethan continued, his gaze shifting to Lucas, who looked visibly shaken. "Amelia, you've been having an affair with my cousin, the man I chose as my best man." A heavy silence fell over the room. Amelia stood still, her bouquet slipping from her grasp to land softly on the floor. Lucas stepped back, as if recoiling from Ethan's accusations. "I have evidence," Ethan's voice cracked slightly. "Emails, text messages, hotel receipts. While we were planning our future, you two were undermining it, betraying not just me, but everyone here who came to celebrate our supposed love." The room erupted into turmoil. Amelia's mother cried out in distress, while her father stood, his face contorted with fury. Ethan's parents sat in stunned silence, their eyes flitting between their son and their nephew. Amidst the upheaval, Amelia found her voice. She tried to plead with Ethan, scrambling to explain, insisting he had misunderstood the whole situation. But Ethan was beyond listening, his patience and trust irrevocably shattered. Turning to address the bewildered guests, Ethan apologized for the false pretenses under which they had gathered. He declared the wedding canceled, his proclamation reverberating through the shocked stillness of the venue. With those words, he descended from the altar, beginning his solitary walk down the aisle. As he passed Lucas, Ethan paused briefly. In a voice heavy with hurt and betrayal, he conveyed his profound disappointment, emphasizing the brotherly bond he once believed they shared. The guests watched in silent astonishment as Ethan approached the exit. However, just before he could leave, a disturbance near the altar caught everyone's attention. All eyes snapped back to where Amelia and Lucas stood as a new crisis began to unravel at the heart of what was meant to be a festive occasion. Amidst the shock, Lucas's hand moved to the inside of his jacket. Time seemed to slow as he drew a small, gleaming object, a concealed handgun. As the tension escalated, Amelia was the first to grasp the perilous shift. Her scream, "Lucas!" cut through the turmoil, her face streaked with mascara and twisted in terror. All eyes turned to see Lucas, gun in hand, his fingers trembling. Alerted by Amelia's cry, Ethan spun around, his expression one of shock at the sight of his cousin, armed at his own wedding. Panic erupted around them. Guests scrambled under tables and rushed toward exits, while the string quartet dropped their instruments and fled. Despite the chaos, Ethan remained composed, addressing Lucas firmly. He implored his cousin to reconsider, to put down the weapon. Lucas, however, seemed unreachable, his eyes wild as he ranted about destroyed plans and lost dreams. Amelia, her wedding dress now askew, cautiously approached Lucas, her voice shaking as she pleaded with him to see reason. For a brief moment, it looked like she might break through to him, but his determination quickly resurfaced. Lucas declared resolutely that there was no turning back. In a swift movement, he tightened his grip on the gun. Amelia darted forward to disarm him, while Ethan raced to intercept, driven by a desperate need to protect her. The room froze as the gun went off, the sound reverberating through the ballroom, leaving everyone in stunned silence, uncertain of who might have been hit. As the echo of the gunshot lingered, a tense quiet followed. Then, pandemonium broke out anew. Amelia fell to the floor, her white gown blooming red with blood. Ethan was by her side in an instant, his earlier anger replaced by sheer panic. He cradled her, the severity of the moment overwhelming him. Meanwhile, Lucas stood in shock, the gun slipping from his hand to the floor, his face etched with disbelief. Unable to grasp the gravity of his actions, he watched as Ethan tried desperately to stop the bleeding from Amelia's wound, pleading with her to stay awake. Ethan's earlier feelings of betrayal were now overshadowed by a desperate need to save Amelia's life. Struggling to focus, Amelia's eyes fluttered open with effort. In a whisper, barely audible, she tried to apologize, her words cut off by a cough that speckled her lips with blood. The seriousness of her condition became heartbreakingly evident as she struggled to convey her remorse, leaving the room heavy with unspoken words and the uncertainty of her fate. Around them, chaos ensued. Guests with medical training rushed to assist, while others dialed emergency services. Lucas stood frozen, overwhelmed by the gravity of his actions, as Ethan's father and another guest restrained him. The wait for the ambulance stretched on, each minute heavier than the last. Ethan held Amelia, whispering words of encouragement and forgiveness, trying desperately to keep her conscious. However, her responses dwindled, her breaths grew shallow. When the paramedics finally arrived, it was too late. Despite their urgent efforts, Amelia was pronounced dead at the scene, her life tragically ending where she was meant to start anew. As police took control of the situation, the enormity of the tragedy enveloped Rosewood Hills. A day meant for joy and celebration had morphed into a nightmare that would linger in the memories of all who were present. In the months following the tragic events at Rosewood Hills, the lives of everyone involved were forever altered. Lucas was charged with second-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison, his future derailed by a moment of jealous fury. Ethan, consumed by grief and guilt, resigned from his conservation job and sought solace in the remote wilderness areas he once cherished, grappling with the loss and the profound changes in his life.